So hello, I'm Carolyn Ward, and apart from being here with the courage to continue, I'm here to face my shame and deeply apologize for having left everyone in the lurch. And there's no excuse. I'm in the middle of running a week-long retreat and I'm across the other side of the world, and yet I must apologize because I knew I was supposed to be with you at 5 o'clock this morning, and I wasn't. So what I can say is that years ago, I would have wanted the world to open up a big hole in the earth and swallow me up from the shame. Not just embarrassment, but shame. You know the difference between embarrassment and shame? Embarrassment is, oh, I did something terrible. I'm so embarrassed. And shame is when you internalize that and you say, I am terrible. And I don't know about you, but I had lived with shame so much in my life because of just trying to survive, right? Not knowing how the world worked, not understanding, not feeling like I fitted or that I could really find a way to be purposeful and happy. And so my survival strategies often landed me in hot water where I would feel myself to be bad. So I grew up a lot with shame. So in the past, if I had missed something like this, I would truly have wanted to never be seen again, and I would avoid completely having to be in touch with the people I let down. And whilst I'm still terribly embarrassed and I'm taking responsibility, I'm no longer running the message that I'm bad or that I'm hopeless or that I'm useless or that, of course, I'm not worth anything. I know those messages are not true. And so I think what I want to share at the moment then, if you have the willingness to listen for a little bit longer, is about courage, and the courage to continue when it feels like it's hopeless and you want to give up, where you can't go on, you can't see a way forward. When maybe you do feel like a failure or the world is a failure and you just don't know why you would keep going. It's so conflicted and confusing and complicated. And you just don't even know which way to step. You find in relationships maybe that the more you try to fix it, the more you try to make it work, the more entangled and the worse it gets. So why would you want to carry on? So I totally understand that. Really, I often will tell that, you know, I grew up in my life with such a sense of hopelessness, and it's not like I had the worst childhood in the world at all, no. And my parents, with their own levels of drama and trauma, were dysfunctional for sure, but they're good people, just surviving also. But it made for a difficult growing up space. And so I think this sort of hopelessness, as I had not a sense of who I was or how I fit in the world or what I could even do, what I love to do, I couldn't find that. And I remember when I was at university that I was often a misfit. And I often actually wanted to die. And I used to pray to God. That was my sort of religious kind of skew, if you like. I'd grown up a Catholic, but I'd walked away from that when I was about 16. I just thought, this isn't working. We go to mass and then we fight on the way home in the car. There's a disconnect here, there's a gap. But I used to pray to God to die. And I say that, and it is kind of tragic, but I'm also a recovering drama queen. Creating drama, addiction to drama was a kind of pattern. And I can still become a little histrionic. Like this morning when I finally realized that I didn't turn up for this talk. Of course I was shocked, but I did then go to histrionics and I wanted to tell the big drama story and how technology had failed me. The reminder didn't go off, and until I finally said, well, my fault. But underneath everything, it was a sense that the world is very complicated. And I didn't know how it worked. And I couldn't quite work in it. I could never have taken my own life. I knew that there was something out of whack with that. But if I could be taken, that would have been okay. And it wasn't until the man I fell in love with was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, that I all of a sudden had something bigger than me that I could rise up to. And I fought the fort of trying to save him, which didn't really work at a physical level, but it certainly worked for both of us actually at a spiritual level. We went on to, learn meditation and kind of do deep healing. And whilst he passed away only 6 months after diagnosis, it set me on a track to understand that, of course, there's your history and the circumstances of life and the world of politics and governance and people and situations, culture. But who I am, and my most intrinsic sense, the essence that I can kind of find a way to come and sit in a place that is deeply peaceful, where I feel fine about myself. I'm not comparing myself with anyone else. I'm not worrying about the future. I'm not lamenting the past. I don't believe my thoughts as if they were truth when they speak unhelpful messages to me. And in that place of peace, and I say peace, but I never really knew what peace was about. I think it's like a relief when I kind of come to sit in that meditative space. That is relief. It's the relief of not having to try hard anymore. I think life today is so hard. It's not just challenging. It can be really hard. Demands and dead ends and difficulties. And yes, I always take something like that and I reframe it. I put a different frame and I say, okay, it's a challenge, it's a learning. How can I empower myself in this situation? What can I do with the way I'm seeing this? How can I shift my perspective? How could I, engage with this in a way that was going to be of service to my own empowerment, my own journey to enlightenment, if you like. So I always reframe it. But I just want to acknowledge, I think life's really hard at the moment. And I think that's a fact for many, many people. This whole drama that we're in the world at the moment with COVID and its various variants. And I'm watching how more and more we're just becoming divided around those who know it's a conspiracy theory and those who know that the conspiracy theorists are lunatics. Everyone is certain about their positions and they're not listening or looking outside of their own belief systems. And it doesn't matter to them that whatever is true is evading all of us in a sense, because this whole current sort of story in the world at the moment is just creating fracture and hurt and loss and division and meanness and confusion. And I'm not talking about being complacent, and I'm not talking about being ignorant or being Pollyanna-ish. But I do think, for me, the question is, what is the most important thing? And for me, the most important thing is that I don't hold any grudges in my heart. And here I'm going to come to talk to courage. Because my heart is like the portal to everything that I know that makes life good. Hope, love, beauty, kindness, enthusiasm, passion, wonder, awe, magic, commitment. There are other things as well, but without those, what's life? Happiness, joy, relationships. What's life without all of that? So my heart is the portal, and it's a really important, fundamental clearinghouse, if you like, and I have to keep it clear. And of course, the word courage comes from cur, the Latin root, cur, which is heart, corazon, cœur, courage. It's all about heart and spirit. And there's a saying in a number of different religions, and I know it from the Brahma Kumaris, it says, you take one step of courage, God takes 1,000 to help. And in other traditions, it says the heavens bow down at your feet. And I think what I've learned over the last 2 years, I've been working with different groups online. It's extraordinary because in the middle of COVID, where people have been in our country, in Australia, unbelievably, not just locked down, locked in. It's become almost like a police state in many ways. And I've been working with groups about creating a life you love living in these circumstances. And the people I've been working with turn around at the end of working together for 6 or 9 months and just say, I've never been more empowered, more free, more creative, more at peace, more clear. than I have been this year. And many of them have been locked up in their homes. They haven't been able to work, or they've reinvented their work. That's the extraordinary thing too. I have also done that. And what we have all come to notice, that when you have the courage to ask yourself, what would I truly love? Not what can I do given the circumstances, but what would I truly love? How would I love to feel? How would I love to be? How would I love my life to be? Not what do I want? What would I love? Then this word love brings you straight into your heart. And if you have courage, your heart could, you enter this portal, you start to access your higher truth, your greater capacities, and the energies that are beyond what you can even imagine. And your intuition kicks in, your divine mind, inspiration. And rather than it being a life where you must achieve and, prove yourself, it starts to become a life where you create. And not creating in the big kind of components of life, though that happens too. But it's the capacity to create in the baby steps. We always feel these days we have to do big achievements. I've got my to-do list and it's all big things and it's always overwhelming. And it's so hard to create a list of 3 baby steps that I'm going to do this week. Baby step might be, I'd love, if I say it, I'd love my life to be full of, I'd love to be doing something artistic. And I've never done anything artistic in my life, or I haven't for a long time. So then I think, okay, I have to look and go and do a course in, life painting. No, baby step is have a look at the different kinds of artistic endeavors that exist. Google. What kind of arts are there for beginners? And you just Google that and you explore. Baby step. There's nothing to show at the end of it except maybe you've moved a little bit in that direction. And then your next baby step might be to look at, some local courses or something that, classes, drop-in class or introductory classes. Again, no commitment to anything. But what you're doing is you're starting to give the message, gentle message to your whole system of patterns that go in a certain direction that, we're just going to open up here. We're going to ease ourselves over a little. And I think in this world where people are finding it hard and are struggling with all that's going on, the courage to continue often is the courage to take back the reins of our life. Stop. I haven't watched news and I sometimes feel ignorant and a little bit, not stupid, but irresponsible. I sometimes feel a little irresponsible that I don't watch the news. And I stopped watching the news when Michael, my partner, was diagnosed with cancer. And they said, be careful what you put into your subconscious mind. And it was the time of the Gulf War, so back in the early 90s. And yeah, be careful what you're watching because all that negativity feeds your own fear and anxiety. So I stopped watching the news, stopped reading newspapers. And occasionally I'll check in, but I have to say it's become a bit more frenetic, more with social media. people are going crazy. But it hasn't really changed so much, and the world is still pretty complicated. But I feel a lot better, and I'm much better able to offer something of value to the people around me if I'm not anxious and I'm not living by predictions of other people. So finding these sort of baby steps that don't have to be big achievements, they just start to edge me in the direction of something I think secretly I would have loved to have done that. I would love to feel that. I would love to experience that. And some of us, I just want to say that some of us have never asked ourselves that question, what would I love? We've been so conditioned, what should I do? What shouldn't I do? You know, as this kind of person, of this gender, of this culture, and this family, of this religion, with this education, what are my limited options? So we sort of stop even dreaming. And then when the world shuts down and we're left with a sort of, sometimes not, maybe not always hollow, but what had kept us busy on the, you know, the wheel of life, the little rats running around in the wheel of life, what had kept us busy and now doesn't, and maybe we even lost our jobs. And the question, like, what's it all worth? Who am I? That's really hard. And yet it's the gift. I can say that for me, when I fell in love and 5 months later Michael was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and 6 months later he died, you could say that was just a tragedy and, you know, nothing more terrible than that. But it was actually the greatest gift of my life. I recovered from hopelessness. I came to understand that life, my life, and life in general didn't belong in the hands of anyone else. It was my choice how I lived. I could divine it. I could say what I would love. And then I could learn what is the success system, if you like. Success in terms of, well, if I say I want that or I would love that, then there's a system that says, well, this is how you go about getting it. And you start one step and another step and another step. And you just gently start shifting your direction in the area, in the sort of skewing of your destiny of what you would choose. And this takes courage. And it also takes courage to listen to your heart. And if you're someone who's supposed to be very responsible and you have a family or you have people looking to you and then you stop and you go, you know what? I'm asking myself, what would I love? And it's not this. I'm not feeling well with this life anymore. And that doesn't mean always throwing the life out. It doesn't mean running away from relationships, because that's sort of blaming the situation, blaming other people. The first step is, well, how do I want to be? How would I love to be? Who would I love to be? How would I love to be feeling? I'd like to feel alive. I'd like to feel inspired. I'd love to feel joy. I'd love to feel wonderment. I'd love to feel secure. I'd love to feel respected and respectful. I'd love to feel certain. Now, if I'm depending on the external circumstances for all those things. Forget it. I'm sometimes going to feel it, but more often than not, because the external world is in fluctuation more so than ever, I think. And it's absolutely uncertain and insecure. But who I am in my essence, how life works, they're sort of laws. They're immutable, they're unchangeable. And when I understand how that works, then I can feel secure. Then I can start to move, even if the world around me is at a standstill. I can move in the direction of my dreaming, of my longing, of my heart's sweetest and most pure hopes. Because we are creative beings. We are creative. You cannot not create. I love that. You cannot not create. So we're always creating something by our thoughts and what we're emanating. Often we're creating what we don't want. We're thinking about it so much and we're vibing out against what we don't like, that we're creating more of the same. They're the things that create our thoughts and our emanations, our vibration, our feelings. And they're magnetic. They draw to them the same. So if you're afraid that you're going to lose someone who you love, and you're so possessive of them and you're so obsessive, chances are you're going to lose them. It's the law of karma in a sense. It's like whatever you put out is what you get back. And if you think you're not worthy to receive wealth or a wonderful relationship, and that won't always be at a conscious level, right? But you will be acting in resistance to good things coming, or you'll be kind of shrinking down. And this is a very good example where you can tell if you're in your heart or your head. When you want to know what it is you would really love, is your courage heart, your courageous heart, doing some of the work. It's if you feel expansive, right? If your energy feels expansive, you go, oh, or if it feels contracted, tight and heavy, then you know that's the work, not of the heart. That's the work of the shoulds and the sort of very conditioned, responsible person, or the rebel even. I'll show them, but it's tight, and it's hard. It hasn't got this sense of flow and openness and expansiveness. So let's just take a few minutes now to do a little meditation that gets us in touch with this. And as I said, it can take courage to ask, what would I love? People think it's selfish too. How could you even think about it? You've got a family, you've got responsibilities. How can you ask, what would I love? The thing is, no one taught us that we have a God-given right, a birthright to love our lives, to feel well in our lives, to feel encouraged and full of vitality and enthusiasm. No one told us that that's actually very natural. Instead, we all agreed to normal, which was grow up and get a job that's responsible. I always wanted to be an actor. And when I told my dad his big issue around security, right, and financial insecurity, and he said, don't be ridiculous. That's for fools. Many are called and few are chosen, and you won't be a chosen one. So what did I do? What he said. He said, go and get a good, secure job for life in a bank. I did it. In 20 months, I had 9 jobs inside the bank. And really, I was so dissatisfied. And eventually, while he was overseas traveling, I enrolled at university to go and study drama, and told him on the phone when he called from overseas, and then just hung up. We do a lot of things because we should, and we've been programmed in the matrix, if you like, to follow certain rules and tracks that people say are about success. They belong to someone else's story. And we have absolutely a right to ask our hearts, what would I love? And then learn how we might go about step by step, baby steps, moving towards that. And yes, it can shake things up, of course. But there are ways of managing that too. And in that question of what would I love, I would love that those whom I love could love their lives as well. I can't control that, but I would love that. And I would love that the people I love can come with me on my journey. And so then there's a way of thinking into a collective movement. So let's begin a little meditation. Just find yourself being as comfortable as you can be and alert. Just notice your breathing. And if you're breathing well in the way that our bodies are beautifully designed to do, to keep us not just alive, but vital, your breath will be by going past your heart all the way down to the lower part of the lungs. And then it'll fill the middle part and then the upper part of the lungs. So let's try that. Breathing into the lower part, the middle part, the upper part. Hold for a moment. And as you breathe out, just relax your shoulders. And breathe normally now. I'm going to ask you to breathe normally, but breathe into your heart. And as you do, just kind of give life to this pump of life, this center of hope, this powerhouse of determination. So let's breathe energy, chi, prana, life force into the heart. And feeling your chest now. Relax. Good. And this time as you breathe into your heart, maybe see a golden colored light breathing in and sparkling. It's filling all of the nooks and crannies of that heart center. Sparkling. And breathing out. And all the sparkles. Breathing out and in. And traveling throughout your whole body as well. And you might think this is imagination. But as Einstein said, imagination is even more important than knowledge. Our lives are shaped, created by what we can imagine. And if we can imagine it, then we can create it. So if you'd like to, if you haven't already closed your eyes, just do that now. And continuing to breathe into the heart center, opening up, creating a more spacious, open-hearted chest. Just noticing what it feels like when you open up your chest and you've been breathing in and out of your heart area. Knowing that each and every one of us actually already has a lot of courage. And you might say no. But there's no way that we could arrive to this point in our lives as you continue to breathe into that courage center, the heart. There's no way we could have arrived here without having a huge will of courage. We use courage every day. We may not call it courage, but we face life. We do things that if we admitted it, we're afraid to do. Even small things like calling someone on the phone and asking for help, which is a really big thing. It's a really big thing, and it's so courageous. Keep breathing into that courage center, golden, sparkly light. And of course, we think asking for help is a weakness. But in fact, it's so strong. And it takes a lot of courage. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to just get up in the morning. Courage to say no. Courage to say yes. Courage to pick up the phone and tell someone you're sorry or you love them. Courage to apply for a job. Courage to quit a job. To stay in a relationship, to leave one. Courage to not do, to just sit and be. To stay with my feelings. Work out how to heal them. Learn how not to be swallowed up by emotions, but rather have them serve my empowerment, my return to who I really am. Breathing into your heart center and letting that energy flow through your whole body. So you have a huge well of courage that gets stronger, more powerful, more potent every day, each time that you use it. And you can call on it. You can activate that courage. Flip the switch. Call it now. I need you now. When you feel like you have nothing left, dig into that well which is full. Use the courage. Feel your heart strong. And know that as soon as you activate, come to your heart, even if it feels hard and closed, doesn't matter. The courage to say, what would I love? How would I love to wake up in the mornings? How would I love to feel at the end of the day when my head hits the pillow? How would I love that to be? And feel the little spark of hope for possibility. I love that when my head hits the pillow, I feel that was a good day and I have a smile on my face. And I'm free from concern, free from worry. And the day is complete. My heart is quiet. My mind is peaceful. And my head on the pillow, I give thanks, I'm grateful. And I sleep deeply and peacefully. And I awaken, rejuvenated, rested, curious about the day ahead. Yeah, I'd like that. What would it be? One baby step, one tiny, tiny thing I could do that would shift me in that general direction. One thing that I cannot fail to do. So simple, so easy. And just see myself in my mind's eye doing that thing. Notice how it feels. Good. So very gently bringing yourself and your breath back to your heart. The golden light and sparkles and letting it move throughout your whole body, feeling your fingers, your toes, your arms and your neck and the head, just gently rolling Take one deep, big breath. And as you exhale, if you haven't already, open your eyes. Open your eyes, open them now. Bring yourself back to this present moment. Fine. This question, what would I love, is such a key. It's a kind of trick in a way, because it almost invariably, immediately activates our heart center. What do I want is more a head question. It's a little bit more associated with the ego too. What would I love? Gives you a key to open the door. Now, just before I come to a close, I'd like to share the screen because I think this is a really great graphic, and it comes from the work of Dr. David Hawkins in his work, Power versus Force. And he talks about courage as the central point, the kind of pivot point where you can move from a life that is a life of powerlessness, where you're forcing everything, where it's all hard work and struggle. And courage is the point where you move through to the higher capacities of the soul, if you like, of the being, the infinite part of our nature. But you have to go to courage, and not courage to fight something, because fighting brings you back into what you don't like. You're fighting against, trying to get power from something you don't like. So you have to have the courage to even let go of the fight and ask, what would I really love? So let me show you this. Okay, here we go. And if you haven't seen this before, what I love about this is it's very clear, and you don't even really need to have it like this. I've done this with so many groups, and I give them all the cards, all the different titles of enlightenment, peace, shame, guilt. And as a group, they have to put them in order. And they get them pretty right. Occasional one here and there is out of order, but you can tell the ones that you just want to shame is that one where when I realized, well, no, it's guilt and embarrassment, when you realize, oh my God, I didn't turn up for this courage to continue talk. But shame is where it's the closest vibration to death. So when you shame someone, it's like you're killing them. And if you let someone shame you, or you shame yourself, it's really like close to suicide. It's a terrible, terrible thing. So be careful with yourself. And here we can see fear, apathy, grief, fear, desire. And it's interesting because you think, well, what's wrong with having desire? There's nothing wrong, but it's always that I haven't got. It's a sense of lack. And as soon as there's lack and there's desire, then there's competition and scarce resources, and you start to look at what other people have and what you don't have, and you want that, and then there's envy. And so all these things start to come in when there's desire. Because when we move up to the higher parts of the graph, we start to realize that all that we would desire, like I want a holiday, I want a beautiful home, or I want nothing wrong, right? Or I want a great car, or I want a terrific partner, is that I'm still putting my sense of how I feel in something external. And when you come to this courage point, and then you move upwards, you start to be able to be satisfied internally. And like the magnet, you attract to yourself things of a like vibrational frequency. And so your world becomes abundant with more of the same. And if you have the great house, great. If you have a simple house that's filled with love and with joy and peace, great. So it's not about the external things at all if you can hold that internal space. But as I say, courage is what David Hawkins says, it is that tipping point where you go from the story of lack, of scarcity, where you're looking at everything external as being fixed and determining your world, and everything is about the world of matter and possessions and people. And when you come up here, it's all about your state of being. And when you can sit in that state of being, then around you get to create more of the same. Remember, you cannot not create. And this is where the infinite part of your nature generates, and you're in a receptive mode to receive more of the same. So I just wanted to show you that because I think it's a very clear model, and I know it to be true. I have worked with it for many years now, many, many years. And I would encourage you, you can search for that work. It's very simple and it's very graphic and very helpful. David Hawkins. Okay. So look, that brings me to a close. It feels, in some ways I could say it's strange that I'm just talking to myself, but I don't feel like that. Maybe it's a cop-out and I'm saying that I can somehow have a sense of talking to everyone who was waiting there this morning or last night, as it was for you. And I didn't show. I hope this is by some way a compensation. And once again, I do apologize to all of you. I especially apologize to Christine and Paulina and Minal, who I left in the lurch. Christina, Paulina, Christine and Minal, who I left in the lurch. My sincere apologies. And I do hope that you'll invite me again if it's useful. I wish you all really a life that is a life of contentment and meaning that is in your hands. You feel it's in your hands. A life that you love no matter what the circumstances are, and no matter how the people around you are coping with those circumstances too. That you can hold in your heart a space of compassion for yourself and for others. That you have the courage to let go of the fight and the stories, and the courage to ask, what would you love? I wish you well, wish you safety and health. I wish you a lovely holiday season coming up. And may 2022 surprise us with goodness. That would be a nice thing. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again sometime in the future. Bye-bye.